Welcome to Scotch and Scripture. My name is Rob. Today we're looking at the Aberlour 12-year. Going to talk a little bit about who you can sit with and who you can stand with. Don't worry about it, it'll become clear. Welcome to Scotch and Scripture. Alright, well, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name's Rob. Welcome. I hope you enjoy it here. We just talk about Scotch whisky and we talk about scripture. That sounds like your jam. Hang around. It can only get worse. Today we're going to look at the Aberlour 12, which is a wonderful Speyside. It's one of those whiskies that's described as a sherry bomb. You can get it for around about $60 US. Find it almost anywhere. It's kind of a classic of the region and a really cool looking bottle. If you ask me, it's one of those bottles that just makes me think that's classy. Classy kind of a person would have this on her shelf. 12 years old, it is matured in both traditional oak and sherry casks, bottled at 40% ABV. I think a lot of people in Scotch world probably think the sweet spot is about 46, and then there's still others who are like all about cask strength and it can't be anything under 56. This is bottled at 40%. I don't think it's that important, and it makes for a really smooth whiskey, which is a nice thing, particularly if you're just getting into Scotch. Some of the 40% bottles are going to be really, really friendly. So it's bottled at a really friendly temperature, if you like. But let's see how it does on the all-important and pop chart, which I'm really trying to get to be a good feature, and I don't know if it is. Last week we did the Lafroig 10 sherry oak cask and it scored poorly. This is the Aberlour 12, let's see how we do. Alright, decent. I'm going to give that, I feel like there'll be a middle ground, so I'm going to put it in at number 3. Lower 12. Number 3 for the Aberlour 12. I know there's only 2 on it, but trust me, we'll get there. It was really more of a squeak than a pop, but still. So anyway, just a lovely looking bottle. I love any bottle that's got some embossed glass on it, like Springbank does that. It just gives it a really classy finish. Kind of a medium colour, definitely got that sherry influence. You'd probably call that kind of a warm amber and good looking. Not much going on in terms of legs. You wouldn't say it's very viscous. It's quite a thin looking, liquidy whiskey. It'll be interesting to remember what the mouthfeel is like on this one. But on the nose, straight away you get a really lovely kind of orchard red apple, quite reminiscent of some ciders. Cider doesn't seem to be a huge thing in the States. It's absolutely huge in Europe and particularly in Scotland, particularly for teenage people, because that's the first thing they'll drink at 12 or 13. In bus stations, train stations, round the back of any disused shelter, anywhere, you'll find them. Really fresh, really lovely. You'd call it a soft nose. It's a really kind of soft, approachable nose straight away. And interestingly, you really don't get that alcohol burst, and maybe that speaks more to the 40% thing that you do with a lot of whiskies. It's not alcohol forward at all in the nose. It's real friendly, kind of soft caramel, really fruity, almost a little bit of a cereal note in there as well. But it doesn't come across as complex at all. And you do get that kind of magic marker, acetone type aroma, which I love. I love the smell of nail polish remover. That's why I use it so often. I don't. And this has been in casks for 12 years, so the golden rule, according to Richard Patterson, respect, is 1 second on the palate for every year it's been in a barrel. So that's going to be 12 seconds moving it around the palate, getting the full enjoyment of this. If you're new to the channel, this is how we appreciate Scotch whisky. Slàinte. Yeah, it's a really light mouthfeel. It just kind of goes down really quickly and there's almost a dryness to it. Definitely apples, definitely fruity. Obviously, massive sherry influence. You can actually taste the sherry, which is why it's been described as a sherry bomb. Really friendly whiskey, really, really approachable. It would not be hard to move from bourbon to an Aberlour. You're not going to get a lot of the same kind of mapley characteristics you get in so many bourbons, but you're definitely going to get, it's definitely a sweeter Scotch whisky, and it's not challenging, it just sits real nice. You wouldn't have to cut it with anything. And you certainly wouldn't put Coke in it, for goodness sake. Yeah, it's real friendly, real light, chocolatey notes. I think there's a honey note in there as well. Yeah, and the finish is warming. It's lovely. It's got that classic Speyside thing where it's kind of a warming, lingering finish. It kind of makes you feel loved. If you need to feel loved, get yourself a bottle of Aberlour. It's friendly. I'm just going to describe this as a really friendly Scotch whisky. I'm going to be honest, there's not much more else to say about this apart from the fact that it's just really decent. Definitely dry in the finish. There's a slight bitterness as well, but it's not overpowering in any way. Maybe it's just a dry finish. It just kind of leaves you with a clean palate. You know, it's not like a lingering, like if you have a heavily peated whiskey, if you have an Islay, like you're just going to be feeling the smoke for weeks, it seems like. This is just a clean palated whiskey and there's no lingering anything really, just a nice warmth. Yeah, really nice, lovely. Aberlour 12, ladies and gentlemen, or as my YouTube algorithm tells me, about 96% gentlemen. Yeah, we'll just keep sipping on it and talk a little bit about the difference between sitting and standing with a person. So I came across this thought a few years ago now when I was going through a pretty tough spot. I was really in a spot where I knew that I wasn't in the career that I wanted to be, or even that I felt I was meant to be in. At that time, apart from doing my quiet time, I was in a job where I had a lot of time to walk around, and so I'd listen to podcasts and stuff. And I came across Brian Houston from Hillsong. He has a leadership podcast, or he had one. I don't know if he still has it. He did this one episode and it stayed with me, and it really spoke to me at the time. And he talked about who you can sit with and who you can stand with. So let's break that down a little bit, because I found it incredibly useful. So here's an analogy for you. Whether or not it's a good analogy, you be the judge. And I'm going to say, first of all, I have never served in the military, and people who have served in the military have my highest respect. Cheers to you. Thank you for our freedom and your bravery. The analogy is this: if there's a soldier on a battlefield that gets wounded, maybe the guy next to him comes to his rescue and picks him up, carries him out of harm's way, and you hear stories like that. There's that movie Hacksaw Ridge about Private Doss and what he did in the Pacific Theatre, and it's an amazing film. And you think about guys like that who put themselves in harm's way. And I think as believers, we feel often we have a lot of responsibility to people that are going through something, and we do have that responsibility. But the analogy with the soldier is that the guy who helps him off the battlefield doesn't then go and perform all the other steps of that person's rehab. They hand them off to the field medic, and the field medic gets them into a field hospital, and then they hand them off to a surgeon or whatever it may be, and then the surgeon hands them off to the care of the nurses, and then eventually they get handed off to rehabilitation, hospital, whatever it is they might need. And there's a whole process of going through from the battlefield back into their life. And what I have found is, I remember being in a position with a certain somebody and feeling that way, feeling like you're trying to help them. What I found was the longer I stayed with them and kind of tried to walk through every part of it, the more and more draining and damaging it actually was to me. And so I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial maybe. It's not selfish to be smart, especially when it comes to your own health. Emotional health, mental health, physical health. And this is what Brian Houston was saying. He was saying there are people you can sit with and there are people you can stand with. And the whole thing is this: you can stand with anybody for a period of time. If somebody's going through a bad time, you can stand with them, you can help them, you can stand beside them, you can walk with them through part of a journey. But then there's a major thing where if that's also somebody that you sit with, and the idea of sitting with people is these are the people that are the closest people in your circle. The cumulative effect of being around somebody who's going through something, or somebody who's a negative person, somebody who's kind of a draining personality, if you're with them and you're not just standing with them through a season, but you're sitting with them through life, the cumulative effect of that is going to be largely negative and really difficult to deal with. I know that firsthand, having been with a particular person through a lot of different scenarios and really feeling like I was obligated to kind of sit with them in a lot of stuff. I've always been a generally speaking, as much as a West of Scotland person can be, generally pretty positive person, pretty outgoing. I definitely love to be at home more and more these days, but I've always been quite focused on things I wanted to do. You know, I've emigrated a couple of times. Like, I'm not afraid of going out and being uncomfortable. Being a musician on stage at this point maybe thousands of times, so like generally quite an outgoing, hopefully positive, enthusiastic person. I found myself during that period of time really starting to become, I wouldn't say negative, but definitely drained, and I lost a lot of that fire, I lost a lot of that enthusiasm. I didn't really know why until I heard Pastor Brian talking about this concept. There comes a time where you kind of have to hand off the care of somebody to somebody who can do it better. And that's where I think as Christians we fall into that trap of being overly empathetic. And we're probably conditioned to that. We're told to bear one another's burdens, but I think there's really a time and place for that. I don't think we're told to bear one another's burdens permanently. I think we're told that as a condition of being ready to do that for people for a certain time, because we're also told to mourn with those who mourn, but to rejoice with those who rejoice. There's a balance to it, and you have to have balance, because if all you're ever doing through circumstances of other people is mourning effectively, whether or not it's death, it could be any number of negative circumstances that you end up in a position of kind of mourning with a person. If you're not rejoicing at any point, you're going to feel that. It's just inevitable. And empathetic people can feel trapped because you feel like you have to go the whole distance with a person instead of handing them off to the next capable group of people or specialists or friend or whatever it might be that can actually help the person through the next stage. Now, I'm not saying you should be selfish. I'm saying you should be smart, because you can get yourself into a dangerous situation where you have nothing left. And if you have nothing left for the people you sit with, how are you ever going to have enough to give to the next person? The people you sit with are your friends, they're your family, they're the people that bring life to you. You should be able to laugh. In fact, you need to laugh. Laughter is the best medicine. To have a laugh with a trusted friend or a group of friends is one of the greatest pleasures, and it's restorative, it's recuperative, it's something that brings life. You can't do that when you feel obligated all the time to try and nurse somebody through something difficult. And I think balance is always important in life, but it's particularly important for you if you're a person who's empathetic, or you have the gift of mercy, or if you're a very compassionate person. You have to be able to draw reasonable, sensible and safe boundaries. It's really not hard to find practical examples of that either. Like, do this, right? You go to church this weekend, be honest with yourself. You're going to catch the eye of that one person you always try and avoid. Why do you try and avoid them? Be honest. You try and avoid them because they generally bring you down, right? There are just some people like that. They just kind of bring you down. You can stand with them for a time, but you cannot sit with them. You have to sit around people that you are going to be able to pour into as they pour into you. And that old saying is entirely true. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I don't care what anybody says, you simply can't. How can you pour from an empty cup? You have to be filled. You have to be spirit filled. You have to be refilled. You have to be around people that lift you up. You have to be able to sit under teaching without worrying about how the teaching is going to affect another person. You have to be able to sing worship without having one eye on that guy next to you who's going for a hard time. You have to be able to do these things. You need strength, and if you don't have strength and if you don't have refilling, how are you going to be effective? We've got really good friends that we go on vacation with sometimes, and our kids are similar ages, and we never thought we'd be a family that went on vacation with another family, but we go with these guys and we try and go. It's been a couple of years since we do it, but we try and go every year, and every time we go, it is the best time. We just have a great laugh. The kids got on great, we got on great. We just sit and talk and laugh, and it's easy and it's good. You need to be around people that are easy and they're good. They're easy company. They're not hard to be with. They're good company, and they fill you up as you fill them up. It's a beautiful thing. It's not easy making that balance these days now more than ever, and this is a good thing. We're really encouraged from a lot of quarters, not just in church, but athletes and football teams and all that, especially for men, to talk to one another when you've got something going on, and it's really important that you do. That's really special, and it's a really important thing, and I'm so glad that the stigma from mental health and depression and all that is starting to really be removed. And I'm not for a second saying that you don't attend to people who come and take your side and say, I really need to talk to you, or you just know that they're going through something, you maybe prompt them a little bit, okay, hey man, you can talk to me. I'm not for a second saying don't do that. I'm just saying you have to have balance in your life. And if you are somebody who is a naturally empathetic, compassionate person, just watch yourself, because it's so easy to get taken down. Malcolm, enough. Malcolm, I'm sorry, my dog is chewing a bone right now, and I can't make him stop, and everybody's in a different room, and so if you hear that, it's not me, it's not my bones, it's my dog. I remember this demonstration in Sunday school where they'd stick one kid up on a chair and another kid would be on the ground, and they kind of join hands and they'd try and pull each other, and it was always the kid on the floor that would be able to pull the guy on the kid on the chair down. And that's because it's so much easier to pull somebody down than it is to pull somebody up. Pulling somebody up, especially in church, should be a team effort. It should be a group of people. It can't be an individual, because the individual is bound to be pulled down by the weight of life. A lot of people going through a lot of heavy stuff. We should be there for them, but we should be with them as a team, as a church, as a group, pouring into them, praying for them, and taking on that burden, bearing that burden as a collective, not as an individual. Nobody's got the strength and power to continually be in a place like that. You can stand with them for a time, but you can't continue to stand with them. You have to sit with people that are good for you and pour life into you. So I am saying that it's okay to pull away and let somebody else take a shift. I don't think that's controversial. I think that's common sense. And maybe, I don't know if this is for somebody in particular, maybe you need to hear it or maybe not. I'm not saying you should abandon your post. I'm saying you should get help, bring other people into it, and at the very least share your burdens with somebody and say, I need you to pray for this guy because it's bringing me down and I'm trying to be here for him, but this is killing me. We've got to be able to do that for one another in the body. We have to be there for one another. Just don't get to the stage where you're so drained that you get nothing left for anybody else. Get with some people that make you laugh and try and enjoy life. This was less scripture than it was a TED Talk, I guess. If you're new to the channel, it'd be cool if you would like and subscribe. I will try to be more scriptural next time. Sometimes you just got to say what you're thinking, right? And It's my channel, I guess I can say what I want. But anyway, stole that from Brian Houston. God bless you, Pastor Brian, if you're watching. Probably not. Aberlour 12 is a very fine Speyside whiskey, inexpensive, really approachable, really fresh, really nice looking bottle. You can pick it up for about 60 bucks. It is a sherry bomb, so if you love those sherry whiskies, you probably won't be disappointed. It didn't score all that well on the pop test. I'm trying to remember now which ones did. In fact, hold on. If memory serves... Oh, right. Even though we didn't review it, I'm going to put the old Brook Laddie, the classic Laddie, as number one. That's the standard by which all cork pops now have to live up to. I'm telling you, I believe in this feature. Can I spell Brook Laddie though? Brook Laddie, number one. Classic Laddie. I guess it's classic for a reason. Alright, that's pretty much all for me. Prayer this week for you, if you are somebody who's heavily burdened right now because of other people, my prayer is that you receive breakthrough, that you get some time around people that make you laugh, and that you don't feel guilty at pulling back a little bit and taking some time to be replenished and being restored. We serve a restorative, replenishing God. You gotta let him fill you up, man. Alright, until next time, God bless you, God bless your family. Slàinte mhath.